Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and with me as always is Mike. How are you doing today, Mike?
I'm doing pretty good. Doing pretty well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well as well. Yeah, but it's good to hear that you're doing well. And also with me is Justin. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. It might sound like I'm riding in an airplane right now. I don't know if y'all can hear that, because there's a loud-ass airplane going by.
No. But maybe you can, maybe you can't. If you can't, I might have fixed it in post.
Or we could add airplane effect for Justin.
Yeah, just so you don't look like a fool.
And make it like I'm fighting, like I'm in a fighter jet. Yeah. Like I want the gunshots and explosions in there too.
Perfect.
Just so I seem cooler. I want to be like Tom Hardy.
You know what? You can edit this episode then. How about that?
This is going to be a weird episode for sure.
Anyways, as always, if this is your first time joining us, we like to start off every episode talking about what is on our minds, which is usually the media we've been watching or reading. And then for our feature review, we will be reviewing Jordan Peele's newest film, Us.
Yeah, and don't forget that each month we review a film from the Criterion Collection that's voted on by you, the listeners. So go check out our latest episode on Princess Bride and look forward to our new episode coming out very soon on Safety Last.
Yeah, and if you want to stay up to date with what we're watching next or vote in our poll to choose our next Criterion film, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. You can also send your questions for us to answer on the show to casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And of course, as always, if you haven't yet and you like the show, go onto iTunes, give us a 5-star review, let us know that you like the show, and it'll help us, grow the show and get a bigger audience. It'll help people find the show. So do it.
Or lose it.
Do it or lose it? Is that the same?
I don't know. I don't know what it means even.
It is now.
That's Nike's motto, right? Slogan.
Is it though?
Speaking of doing it, let's go on to what's on our mind.
All right. Let's do that.
Which isn't sex. Now I've said that out loud and I realize it might sound like sex.
You on the mark!
That is not on my mind.
All right. Justin.
Yes, sir.
What's on your mind this week?
Well, this week I started my Netflix like you did last week, and one of the first films that I got on there was one I've been wanting to watch forever, and especially lately. I think it was 2 weeks ago I talked about Ain't Them Bodies Saints on an episode for What's on Our Minds. Because I've been...
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I've had my curiosity piqued by David Lowery after A Ghost Story and The Old Man and the Gun. And so, of course, I watched Ain't Them Bodies Saints. And the one I wanted to see that like really piqued my interest because I wouldn't expect this sort of film to come from him is Pete's Dragon. So the remake that came out recently. Obviously, he didn't direct the really old one.
Yeah, with Robert Redford.
Yeah, Robert Redford and Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yeah, I saw that back in theaters.
Yeah, I missed it in theaters. I think... It being a Disney live-action remake, I wasn't particularly interested in it, but the name of David Lowery is basically what made me want to watch this. Yeah. I found that very interesting.
Yeah, I can understand that, because I'm not very interested in those live-action remakes generally either.
Yeah, and I'll start off by saying that this one definitely surprised me as far as being a little bit more grounded than what I've seen of because I haven't seen a trailer for Pete's Dragon at all. Like I don't even remember seeing one when it was coming out. But of course I've seen the trailers for like the Beauty and the Beast one, the Cinderella one, the Lion King, Jungle Book. I've seen all of that and how those look. So Pete's Dragon kind of surprised me in how grounded it was and how much it wasn't just a CG fest other than the dragon.
Right.
And I'll just really succinctly just say that I really like this film. I thought it was quite good. It made me cry a couple of times.
Nice.
And that's always a good sign.
Wimp.
I cry. Yeah, I am a wimp. I do cry pretty easily, but this one made me cry pretty good. A little harder than,
a good cry.
Everything else I watch. Yeah. So I thought it was really, really fun and enjoyable and sweet. And I mean, maybe the bad guys are a little unbelievable because they seem to be doing evil for evil's sake, but everything else is so sweet. It's just kind of how do you put someone doing something evil without it just seeming kind of off tone for the movie? But it's mostly just really sweet and enjoyable and beautifully shot too.
Yeah, that's kind of my memory of it as well. I think I probably wasn't as high on it as you were, but I definitely enjoyed it. And kind of what you were saying earlier, you never even saw the trailers for it. I think that probably has something to do with the box office that Pete's Dragon ended up making, because I don't think anyone had heard of it really, because it didn't make any money.
Yeah, it kind of seemed like it was maybe a test run for these live action remake sort of things. And
yeah, maybe
I guess
so.
it wasn't successful, but
yeah, I don't remember when Jungle Book rolled around, but like what year?
I think this was before that. I mean, and that's not to say they haven't remade other movies
like Cinderella.
They did like Peter Pan, and they've tried it before. This seems like the first that I can remember in the latest crop of doing that.
Right. Yeah, I think Cinderella might have been first, but this might have been first as well. But either way, it doesn't matter. But you're right. It was pretty early on in that process.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no reason this movie should have made as little money as it did, especially because it's better than some of the live action remakes I've seen recently. And I'm thinking specifically of The Beauty and the Beast and Jungle Book.
Right. I haven't seen either of those.
I think Jungle Book is like pretty amazing in some places, but without spoiling anything, I think a lot of these latest remakes can't decide if they want to be a musical or not. So they have
because they're straight remaking them.
Right.
With all
so
the same
it's weird.
songs.
Like, I don't know. Sometimes they have their own scenes, and then sometimes they'll like pick one or two famous songs and then kind of do them the same, and that annoys me, I think. I don't know. So Pete's Dragon has none of that. It's completely grounded, like you were saying.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty different from the original. I don't think they stuck to like straight to the original like some of these other ones are doing, and I think that's for the better.
I don't even remember the original.
I haven't seen the original, I'll say that, but I did go read the plot synopsis of the original to see how close it was, and it's pretty different. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I know that it was drastically different to the point where I'm like, okay, they kind of did their own thing with this one, and I think it pays off. I think it's just for me, it's kind of like I would say a 4 out of 5 is what I would give it, which is pretty high, and maybe that's a little bit of a shock at how good it was.
I don't even remember what I gave it.
I saw it on Letterboxd. I'm trying to remember if you gave it 3 or 3.5, but
the way I'm feeling now, I would say 3, but I don't begrudge a 3.5 or a 4. It's a well-made movie. I get it.
Yeah. Have you seen it, Chris?
I have not.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's cool. I haven't seen it. I saw the original a lot when I was a kid. I mean, like you talked about the bad guys, and for sure in the original one, they are evil just for evil's sake type of bad guys.
Yeah, it's the one downfall of this movie, that the bad guys are just motivated by greed and doing bad things for greed, and not like anything more well developed.
Well, to be fair though, that's what most real bad guys are motivated by.
I guess that's true, but I guess it's the way that they come to being greedy is so fast. It's like a dragon. Let's bag it and get rich.
I mean,
I don't know.
It rings pretty true though. Like.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
But anyway.
Yeah, I guess the main thing I want to say is that it is a shame, as you said, Mike, that this movie didn't make a lot of money, because I think it's very good, especially for a kid's family Disney movie.
Agreed.
And I wish that this had done better. That way, more things like this would get greenlit, as opposed to just remakes of the really popular ones that are going to make its money no matter what, no matter if the movie's good or bad.
Like Beauty and the Beast. That's the most egregious example I can think of. Like, it's so close to the cartoon.
Lion King is not out yet, and I have a feeling, based on the trailers, to me that will be, because there's not really a lot of live action about it.
And also, you can't really improve upon the Lion King.
Yeah, the Lion King's pretty amazing.
So they're not going to make a better version of it. So they might as well remake this one that they already know works, which automatically makes me just want to watch the original more.
Right? And you said something
that's the plan.
Kind of annoys me about the Lion King, and this is but like calling it live action. I don't think it's a live action film. It's basically animated just like the original Lion King. I mean, there aren't any real people in it, right? So
yeah, that's true. There might not be a single live action thing in the entire movie.
Yeah. It's like photorealistic CG. Quote photorealistic, because it still looks like CG.
Right.
But I think something like Pete's Dragon is like the perfect thing they should be targeting, because if you look at Pete's Dragon, in the original, it was live people. If I remember correctly, it's live people with a very, very obvious like cartoon drawing, right?
It is, yeah.
It's like not a stuffed puppet or anything like Sesame Street style or anything like that. It's like straight up cartoon. So that's like prime and ripe. Like we should go after these things more, like the Black Cauldron, or these lesser known ones.
Agreed. But well, I'm sure they will once they've burned through all the popular ones. But anyway.
Yeah, but that's it for Pete's Dragon. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. buy it on Amazon or rent it or something or stream it, whatever way it like supports this film, because maybe we can like cult classic this thing in hindsight now that we've seen what they're doing now.
And goodness knows Disney needs your money.
Right. Gonna have to subscribe to Disney Plus here in a little bit.
Oof. Let's change the subject, because that's making me sad. So, Chris, what is on your mind?
I caught up on a movie that Mike talked about not too long ago. I watched it on Hulu. It's Free Solo. And I'm going to make it short since Mike's already kind of talked about it. But I found it thrilling and tense and beautiful to watch. What I really liked about it was beneath all that, the photography and all that, I think this is a really great character study into Alex Honnold. And it's fascinating as to what it would take to solo climb anything, really, whether it's El Capitan, which is what he does climb, or, I mean, just anything without a rope, without backup seems crazy, right? But I just love the characters dive into it and kind of explaining who he is. I watched something on YouTube about it, and there was the directors talking about him, and they said that the reason he started free soloing in the first place was because he was so scared of talking to other people that it was less scary to climb something without a rope than it was to actually talk to people and ask for somebody to help him, like to belay him. And that's how he kind of got started on it. And I found him as a character just really interesting, and the way he affects the people around him in that way. Yeah, I love this movie. I wish I had been able to see it in the theater, because seeing it in the theater would have the scenery is just so amazing. I think it was even on IMAX.
That's where I saw it.
You saw it on IMAX?
Yeah, one of like the AMZ IMAX is not real legit IMAX, but
still
it
better
was still
than
good.
Yeah, I watched it on Hulu at home, so definitely better than that. But it's so great, and what an achievement that he did. Like some of these things that he's climbing, there's little to no actual grip. It's really fascinating. I like it a lot. Yeah, so that's what it was on my mind this week.
Yeah, well, hang on. Before we move on, I have a question for you.
Okay.
What was your take on that guy and the relationship with his girlfriend and all that? Did that move you? Do you think that they are compatible? Like, do you think they're a good couple? Or like, what was your read on all of them?
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, it depends on where his priorities end up being post the movie, right? Post El Capitan. Like, if he's satisfied, he's like, I've done it. I've climbed El Capitan. I don't need to put my life at risk anymore. However, I don't think that that's going to happen, because I think him doing these kinds of things is such an adrenaline rush for him. And he, like, so for instance, and I don't think it's too spoilery, but he goes into MRI machine at some point, right? And they do like a test on his brain, and they find out like this is a normal person's brain and the fear receptors in it, and then this is his brain, and there's like little to no actual fear receptors. And I think the only time he really feels that fear and can conquer that fear is when he climbs something like El Capitan. He does something like this, and that's when he feels alive. I think it's very similar to like why I watch movies, except for not as dangerous, but like I'm always looking for that
how brave of you.
Yeah, I'm always looking for that next like great movie, that great experience, like when I go see a movie. And I think that
I've got a camera. We can make a doc of you.
Yes, we can talk about it. Perfect. We'll call it.
Chris
what should we
gets
call
off
it?
work and he's like, tonight I'm really just hoping to see the next good movie.
And then we can have my girlfriend, be like, oh, he just sees so many movies. He doesn't put me first in anything.
Yeah, riveting.
Yes. But yeah, anyways, I think his priorities probably need to be adjusted. Or the other thing would be she needs to realize that he's always going to do this, and she's always going to...
She needs to get out of there. Poor girl.
Yeah. My sister gave me a little bit of insight. She used to actually live in Yosemite, which is where El Capitan is. And so she doesn't know the director or Alex Holland or whatever his name is, but she kind of ran in the same circles. So she knows like people that know those people. Mm-hmm. And she actually talked about how much, and it shows a little bit of it in the movie, but how much work and preparation they actually put into it. And so there's a lot of work and preparation that they put into it. It's not like he just decides to climb it. It's still dangerous. But I mean, I think to some extent so are like stunts in movies and, stuff like that. So I don't think it's quite as crazy as Well,
I don't
it's
know,
crazy.
man.
It's crazy. Never mind.
Seems crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Did you vote for Free Solo in our Oscar predictions to win?
I'd have to go back and look. I think I actually did. That was one of the ones that I got. Yeah.
I was going to say, do you regret not seeing it beforehand so you could get a whole 10 right instead of 9?
Take that back. I don't need to be reminded of it.
Yeah, it looks like you would have got 9 anyways, so...
Yeah, I did pick it. Yeah, I regret not seeing it earlier, just in general, like in the theater, for sure.
Heard that.
Yeah. I don't, because I did.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, Justin, do you regret it?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to regret something until you know how good it was of a thing that you missed out on. That's a weird sentence, but hey.
I think people get it, though.
Yeah, you know what I mean, and that's all that matters.
I definitely recommend that you watch this, Justin, because I think it's really good. What do you, Mike? Do you think would you recommend it for sure? Or
yeah, definitely. I think it's an amazingly made movie. It's technically great. Problem is, like, emotionally, I'm not sure where I come down on this guy, but that doesn't make the movie any more or less good, right? It's just kind of like morally, I kind of have objections to like glorifying this kind of thing.
Do you think they glorified it though? Because
I mean, kind of.
I think they spend a lot of the time like showing everybody that is a free soloer, like, and how they've died. Like there's not like a free soloer over 40, type of thing. And so I feel like yes, at the end when he actually does climb it, you feel satisfied, and there's like a, a satisfaction to him finishing this. But I also think they show how crazy it is.
Yeah.
I'm going to punish oh, go ahead.
That's it.
I'm going to punish myself for not having seen it in IMAX since I live so close to one, and I'm going to watch it on my Apple Watch.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Let us know what you think.
Just put it up really close to one eye. It'll be just like in the IMAX.
It's true. There's a pun there, but we should probably just move on.
All right. Anything else for what's on our minds this week?
No, that's all I have.
That's all I got. I think we're going to have a big talk on our main event.
All right. So let's go ahead and move into our review of Jordan Peele's Us.
That's a classic right there.
What does I Got 5 on it mean? It's about drugs.
It's not about drugs. It's a dope song. Don't do drugs.
Get in rhythm. There you go. There you go. Can't believe how big they've got.
Did you hear Gabe got a boat?
He's kidding, right?
He's not kidding. Hey, I think it's vodka o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
Where's Jason?
Jason?
Jason! Where were you?
I didn't know if you were lost. Stick with me, and I'll keep you safe.
There's a family in our driveway.
It's probably the neighbors. But y'all scared of a family? Hi, can I help you?
Zora, put your shoes on.
If you want to get crazy, we can get crazy. What are you people?
It's us.
All right, so as always, before we get into the film, just want to let you know that at first we will be speaking very generally about the film, not be giving away spoilers. So you can continue to listen if you haven't seen the film yet, and before we get into spoilers, we'll give you a warning, a spoiler alert, a little bumper, so that you have time to pause the podcast and not get anything spoiled. You're very welcome.
All right. So Us, which was written and directed by Jordan Peele, starring Lupita Nyong'o, Winston Duke, and Elizabeth Moss. The IMDb synopsis says, a family's serenity turns into chaos when a group of doppelgangers begins to terrorize them.
Serenity is questionable, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well,
if we're going to be real.
Yeah, but otherwise,
not
very
too
to the
important.
point synopsis.
Yeah. For sure. All right, so who wants to go first on this movie?
I will.
All right, good luck.
Thank you. Okay, so based on the trailer for this film. I feel like it really could have gone either way. I enjoyed Get Out, so I was really interested to see if Jordan Peele could make something that good again, or, hopefully better. And that said, I found myself enjoying Us, I think, more than Get Out, which might not be a popular opinion. I'm not really sure yet where audiences are going to come down on this movie, but I would be surprised if it's more well received than Get Out. But this movie has a lot to unpack, although that might not be so obvious until the movie's over and you're on the way home. And I don't know that there's a whole lot that we can really say about this movie without spoilers.
Yeah.
But I will try to give my spoiler-free thoughts here and then move on pretty quick. First of all, I want to say Lupita Nyong'o is back in live action again after what seems like forever since I've seen her, her actual face. And she is awesome in this movie. Winston Duke from Black Panther is in this, and I think he's pretty good. Although for my money, he's not even one of the top 3 performances in the movie. This movie has some really great performances in it. I think the script is very smart, but I don't know that you're going to think that if you're looking for a very literal horror film. This will not hold up to scrutiny and plot nitpicking like a straight up horror movie would. There are some problems with logic, in the third act, I think. However, that doesn't super matter to me in this case because this movie has so much on its mind that stuff doesn't necessarily feel as important to me. And I think the character work in this film is wonderful. So yeah, Justin, what do you think?
Well, I just saw it today, so I haven't had a whole lot of time to unpack it. So what I'll say is I thought it was really fucking great. So Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, same. All right, podcast over.
Yeah.
All right.
Good done. Thanks for listening,
Spoilers.
guys. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Spoilers first. Just kidding. I will say a little bit more, although I have a lot in common with Mike. The performances are mostly the things that shine in this movie, I think, or at least they shine brightest. Because to me, there's a lot of things that
Lupita
shine in the film. But
she's so good.
You're right. All the performances, Lupita especially. The things that I'll go over briefly, because like you said, Mike, we can't talk too much, but I think this film is really well shot. I think the script is excellent. Like you, Mike, I had problems initially while the third act was happening and when I walked out of the theater, but I think I've parsed a lot of the problems that I had. I don't know that we're going to have the same problems to talk about, like logic problems. But what?
Said we'll see, but not until spoilers because there's absolutely no way to talk about it without spoilers.
Yeah, totally. So I think I come away having explained every problem that I had to myself, and now I think it's pretty good. And I think that the one place that I will disagree with you a little bit, Mike, is that I think you said that the people might not enjoy it as much if they're looking for a literal horror film. But that was kind of because of the logic gaps and potential, I guess, plot holes or something.
Yeah, I mean, I've already talked to 2 people that had initial problems with the third act, So I'm just saying, based on that, I think it's possible, I don't know.
Okay, yeah. I mean, who knows what other people are going to think. I know that for me, I wasn't even really thinking too much about what was going on in the film under the surface and what the film was about, because to me, it's just such an excellently crafted horror film that I was just entertained as a horror film the whole time. And it wasn't until, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 minutes later, after walking out of the theater, that I really started to think about, wait, let me think of what this film is actually about. Because the rest of the time, I was just entertained.
Yeah.
I think it's really, really good. Mm-hmm. And it's beautifully shot, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. It's, like we said, really well acted. I love the mystery that it builds. It took me back to a time when I was watching Lost, and I fell in love with the mystery, how they just kept doing things that you're like, that's important. That's important. That's going to add up to something. And we don't have to get into whether Lost delivered on that in the end, but it reminded me of that. Everything kept kind of just building that mystery more and more and heightening that continuously throughout the movie. And I just found it fascinating from start to finish. So I wasn't joking when I said it. I thought it was really fucking great. It is by far my favorite film of 2019 so far.
Oh, yeah.
But
for real.
That's not too high of a bar.
Yeah, but I will be looking forward to the movie that clears it next.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I can't wait to see that.
And I'm excited to hear Chris's thoughts.
Yeah, me too. So, Chris, go ahead. What do you think?
Yeah, so just like Mike, I like Get Out a lot. I was very excited to see what Jordan Peele will do next. The buzz from South by Southwest got me more excited. I was worried, however, that this would just equal Get Out or be disappointing. I was a little bit on the fence there. You guys are right about the third act. I think the best metaphor for that is it's a lot like Signs, I think. Like, you're either going to buy into it or it's going to bother you. And either way, it's okay. But that's going to be kind of where you come down on whether you like this film or not. I saw this movie Friday night, and then I went again on Saturday just to see it again and to get more out of it. Unfortunately, due to bad planning, I did miss like the last 15 minutes of the second viewing. Yeah, it was really upsetting. But I think that this movie works on two levels, really. I think, just like Justin said, you get caught up in the moment. It's such a entertaining movie on the surface. But yet there's like this deep dive that you can do underneath the surface. There's all this stuff going on underneath the surface. And I think those are signs of great movies. You guys are both right. Mike G is what I'm going to call him because I can't pronounce his last name, but he's the cinematographer of this, and he does really good work in here. A lot of it's dark, and it's shot in fascinating ways, and it looks great. The soundtrack, I think, is phenomenal, and the use of sound just in general is really good. Both of you guys talked about Lupita Nyong'o. She is phenomenal. Nyong'o. Yeah, man, I can always say it, except for when I actually get on the podcast. Anyways, she's really great, especially in the dual role that she's playing. I think all the actors in general are really great, except for maybe just a couple of moments with Winston Duke. Yeah, I think there's a couple of moments that kind of fall flat. That's kind of one of my minor quibbles with it. And then also, I think that in the third act, there's this moment that kind of grinds everything to a halt, and we'll talk about that more, but that's my only really negative thing to say about this film. I mean, ultimately, this is a great film, and it's got all this depth that you can dive into. It's great to see Jordan Peele succeeding in this way that I don't think that directors necessarily succeed in this way anymore, like making their own films as opposed to like kind of being an auteur as opposed to getting into like a studio system, like whether it's Star Wars or Marvel or, doing these big budget blockbusters. I think it's great to see him doing his own thing as opposed to getting caught up in, Disney. And I can't wait to see his next film. I'm stoked to see. I can't wait. So yeah, those are my thoughts, my initial thoughts on Us.
Yeah.
Cool. And
one thing... Sorry, go ahead.
And real quick, before we move on, Chris, I think you kind of shortchanged the cinematographer. I also don't know how to pronounce his last name, Mike Gialikis, but he also shot It Follows. And most recently, Glass, the M. Night Shyamalan film, which I think, despite your feelings on that movie, I think it was actually pretty well shot. So I like the way this guy shoots things.
Yeah, Under the Silver Lake is also shot by him, so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, yeah, the movie you love that I haven't seen yet.
Yeah. We'll see it in like 2022, right?
Yeah, at some point it's going to come out.
All right, cool. So that's all I just wanted to bring up that guy and give him his respect because I think It Follows is shot very well.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on something that I forgot to touch on that you said, Mike, and you said that you think it might be an unpopular opinion that this movie is better than Get Out. It's at least not unpopular with me. Or this podcast, because now it's 2/3 of us who think that.
Yeah.
Because I think, I've only seen this film once and I've seen Get Out twice, but just based on this first initial viewing, I think this is an improvement, and I really, really liked Get Out. So that's a testament to how good this film is.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and I want to say, without spoiling anything, if I had a complaint about this movie, it is that, like Get Out, before it, there are revelations in this movie that happen super late in the game that are so painfully obvious from the beginning of the movie that it's incredibly frustrating. It's addressed eventually, but it takes a long way to get there. And I don't know. We can talk more in spoilers, but there are just revelations that don't feel like revelations. And I'm like, okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah, I think we might be on the same page there.
I know what you're talking about. I agree that we know beforehand.
I don't know that it matters, though.
Savvy one. It doesn't matter. And I think that the revelation does something else other than just be a revelation.
Agreed.
And for that, I think it's okay.
Agreed. But if I had any complaint about Jordan Peele as a writer, it's that everything he's doing, not everything, there's a lot of things I didn't see coming in this movie, so I don't want to say that, but like in Get Out, I saw a lot of it coming before it was revealed. Same in this movie. But in both cases, the script is so intelligent that it hardly matters.
Right. So one thing that I want to touch on that I really enjoyed is I guess it's the tone and the environment of this movie. I love the way that it is just ominous and everything is ominous in it. Like there's so much tension to like someone turning on a light switch in this movie. And like it just made me laugh because like even the light switches are intense in this film. Because like at one point someone turns on a light switch and the soundtrack was like boom, like in the theater.
Yeah.
And it just sets up this tone of being in suspense like, almost the entire time, or just being kind of like on the edge of your seat. It's like anything can be dangerous. Anything can be scary. And I think that's kind of masterful direction from Jordan Peele.
You can tell that he has a flair for showmanship. Like he's reviving the Twilight Zone, or at least like producing it, like the remake of it or the reboot of it coming out this year. And this movie feels like a straight up Twilight Zone like type movie. There's so much joy on the twists folding in on themselves and the highbrow concepts, you know, and like the morality tale of it all. Mm-hmm. You can just feel the love for this kind of story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I was watching the like pre-roll at the Alamo Drafthouse because I saw it there because really that's the only place I will ever go see a horror movie because every other horror experience in theaters I have is usually ruined. But they had a pre-roll that was the top 10 moments from Key and Peele, their sketch show, where you can see the signs that Peele was going to become a great horror director. And they went through this list, and it's really interesting to go to watch. I don't know if they have that sort of stuff available on their website. I can't imagine they do, but it's interesting to watch like the cinematic stuff they're doing in Key and Peele and see how that's translated into like Get Out and Us. Like even one of them, there was a whole joke sketch they did that took place in a House of Mirrors. So like that's one that came directly over. But yeah.
You brought up something that we can talk about non-spoilers for sure. What was your audience experience like? And obviously, I mean, yours was probably quiet. They didn't talk, but were they gasping? And, you know, like, how was your audience experience just in general, I guess?
They were laughing at the right moments. They were gasping at the right moments. You could hear people like go like, you know, in at tense moments. I think the movie really encapsulated everybody, though. Like, there wasn't a lot of whispering, because you do get a little bit of that at the Drafthouse.
Mm-hmm.
I heard one, maybe two, but it wasn't anything incessant or, you know, repeated. I think everybody was really encapsulated.
Yeah. How about you, Mike?
Well, even though this movie made a lot of money this weekend, there was no one immediately around me. My screening wasn't packed at like 10:10 on a Saturday night. So there were some people like in the rows back behind me, but I have no idea what the reaction was. I didn't hear them at all, you know? So I had a wonderful experience. Although maybe having an audience there to react to some of it might have been more fun.
Yeah. I mean, my audience was packed. I saw it Friday night, or at least the first time I was, and I had a bunch of like younger, like mid-20s, I don't know, I sound really old when I say this, but you know, like kids that aren't necessarily there just to watch the movie, you know, like me necessarily. They're out being social. But yeah, just like you were saying, Justin, they were enraptured. People were gasping at the right times. And there's even people that were kind of talking to the screen a little bit, which usually is annoying, but I can't necessarily fault them if that's how they watch the film. And it was kind of actually a little bit fun. It wasn't super annoying, but it was like the reason they were doing that was it's the same as a gasp, kind of, you know? They're like, no, you know, type of thing. And oftentimes when audiences are like that, I tend to enjoy being part of that audience and watching the movie. And it wasn't so much that it was distracting from the film. Yeah, everybody was encapsulated by the film or enraptured. So it wasn't like they were laughing at the wrong times, right?
Yeah. Speaking of laughing, did you guys like the use of humor in it and the way that it was peppered throughout? Too much? Not funny? What did you guys think?
Yeah. I liked, I would say, 95% of it. I think there's some moments with Winston Duke that kind of fall flat. especially earlier on in the film, like when well, I don't think it's a spoiler, but when he gets his boat, I thought that's real fun and stuff like that.
That was funny.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of the dad jokes that he's telling are good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it works. It helps to relieve some of the tension. As a result, though, I never find any of his movies very scary. I mean, between the two that we've seen so far.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, like even Us, which is more scary, is never scary at any point in the movie. Like, it never at any point was I like, oh God, like there's points where I'm into it, really into it, but I never considered it a horror movie the same way I would consider something like Hereditary a horror movie, or even like The Conjuring or something like that. So I don't know. It kind of, I like it personally, but it also stops me from considering it a legit horror movie, and maybe that's on me. I don't know.
Yeah, horror movie is such a weird definition. Anyways, I think this is horror leaning heavily on suspense, right? Whereas Hereditary is horror leaning heavily on the horror of emotion.
Well, sure. Let me rephrase that then. The humor causes me to feel less suspense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which isn't bad. It makes the movie very watchable and fun and funny and smart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but I think there's a downside.
Sure, I think it's one of those things. Humor like that in this sort of film, it's either gonna send you one direction or the other. I think you're probably going to enjoy it personally or not. Like, I think it's one of those things where I can imagine talking to someone about the film and thinking that it's stupid, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
if you talk to people about some of the Eli Roth films, like Cabin Fever, or some of those, or Cabin in the Woods even, as well, like, there are people out there that think the film's really stupid. And I think that's because, like, the humor and the kind of tongue-in-cheek tone of it doesn't feel like a legit horror film to them, and maybe that's it.
To each their own, right? Like, I would rather watch a Jordan Peele horror movie over like a James Wan movie, right? So,
yeah.
Personally speaking, that doesn't bother me at all. It's just something in my brain. It helps me, or it doesn't help me. It confuses me on like how to like put a genre on both of Jordan Peele's movies so far.
Yeah,
yeah,
and I think it also helps with rewatchability. Like, Hereditary is great, and I love it. But it's going to be... I'm going to have to think real hard before I watch it again, right?
Right.
But with Get Out or Us, it's a little bit lighter in tone, right?
Well,
so,
I mean, I would compare it not content-wise, but just like in uniqueness-wise to like Tarantino. Like, all of Tarantino's movies have comedy all throughout the movie, to the point where you can consider a lot of them comedies. But I don't think any of them are primarily comedies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with Jordan Peele, what I think of a lot is Hitchcock, and more so my early experience with Hitchcock before I was really into film or saw any of his films, because he kind of has this reputation as like a horror filmmaker, or, he did these like late night Alfred Hitchcock hour type things, which were kind of Twilight Zone-y, and I always heard people talk about him as like a master of horror and things like that, and he's a lot more suspenseful and not very scary in terms of his films. And I think Jordan Peele's kind of in that same boat, if like he's not quite a horror director, in my opinion.
Yeah, he kind of feels all his own. Like, he feels like his biggest schools of like filmmaking come from like Hitchcock, and then like M. Night Shyamalan, and then like Twilight Zone,
Yeah, definitely. I think regardless, it has its own unique sort of tone, and I think that I'm really enlightened by the fact that this film has broken records. What is the record that it broke this weekend? Like,
biggest opening horror original movie.
Yeah, for a horror film.
For an original horror film, the biggest opening. And like, I'm so happy that this sort of stuff is getting recognition and championed. It should be.
Yeah, it's about something, thank goodness.
Yeah, and I saw the trailer for Ari Aster's new film, who did Hereditary. What's it called? Midsummer?
Yeah.
Yeah, but spelled weird.
Yeah, I saw the trailer for that, and I just kind of have this feeling like we're either entering into, or maybe just smack dab in the middle of like a sort of a golden age in horror film, or like really unique horror film, where we're getting these movies like this that I don't remember things like this coming out 10 years ago.
No.
and I am very excited by that.
Yeah, even going back to like a few years ago, The Witch. Like, I think it kind of started there is when I first started taking notice of it. I mean, it may have started before.
And It Follows, which I think came out around the same time.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like something happened, and
well, it's interesting too. I think Ari Aster was being talked to or was interviewed, and he talked about how if he wanted to make a family drama, he had to he has to add a horror element to it in order to make it. Like if he just wants to make a film about a family grieving, he's not going to be able to make that film. But if you add a horror element to it, you can make that film. It's kind of like also Sam Raimi was when he made the Evil Dead trilogy or whatever. He's like, I can make a horror movie for cheap and get my name on the map. So you can make a horror film for cheap, and you can also say something while you're making that cheap horror film, and oftentimes it'll make its money back. So it's a good bet, I think, horror films are.
Yeah, that's true. They're easily marketable. Like, even if they're, like, ultimately disappointing, they usually have pretty strong opening weekends.
Yeah, and you don't need a big name in it. It helps to get a strong opening weekend, I guess, but, like, the horror films can be successful because there is an audience that are so into horror films that the actors and stars don't really matter to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is, it's kind of unique for the horror genre and maybe another genre or two.
Maybe, like, straight-to-DVD or straight-to-VOD action movies.
Yeah, or I was going to say maybe, like, religious films.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Faith-based films.
Yeah, Kirk Cameron stuff.
And Kevin Sorbo sometimes.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, are we done with non-spoilers and us?
I think so.
Yeah. Sounds like we all recommend it pretty strongly.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
you haven't seen it, go see it, please.
For real.
Really, we oftentimes say spoilers are coming, and, you know, like, this is one where we really mean it. Like, please don't go see the movie and then listen to our spoilers.
Yeah.
All right, well said.
No, I guess Rosebud is just a piece in a jigsaw puzzle.
Let me order cigarettes you got up there. I'll tell you all about it.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
And here we go.
One of the problems I had that was quickly remedied at the end by the final revelation, which was not a revelation, but anyway. The scene where we find out that there aren't just the main doppelgangers. Like, there are other doppelgangers out there, right? And then all of a sudden, Tim Heidecker's family and Elizabeth Moss's family gets murdered real quick, you know?
Yeah.
I had a problem with that initially because I was like, why are they the only ones, our main victims, like Red and her family, the only ones taking their time trying to kill Adelaide and her family? You know, like, they're being methodical about it and toying with them while everyone else is just murdering straight away.
Yeah.
That was quickly remedied for me. But
me too.
Did you guys have a problem with that at all initially?
I did for a while. I was like, especially when the two friends get killed so quickly.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what?
The daughters? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I even had a problem with it at the time, but yeah, I definitely had a reaction like, wow, that was quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt so confident in Jordan Peele though that I was like, let me temper that feeling.
Exactly. Yeah.
And see where we go from here. And I'm glad I did because it all makes sense in the end. I think that the reason that they would kind of torture the initial Lupita Nyong'o that we meet.
I agree. And before we get into like the heavy stuff, let me just say that one of the things that like doesn't work about this movie on like a pure like horror movie element, like no higher thinking metaphors involved. Just like on a sheer like writing level, I think the movie fails in a couple places.
Okay.
Pretty minor stuff, I guess, but where'd all the gloves, jumpsuits, and scissors come from? I get it. They've been eating rabbits, so that's how they've been surviving. But where are they going to get all that stuff? Like I said,
I don't know. I think
pretty minor, but I can't think of it. Can you?
No, I think I don't necessarily have a problem with it. Like, I think that there's enough there that maybe they don't have to tell us, but like, there's enough that we don't know that we could explain it away, right? Like, so these are all basically clones, right? So maybe all the doctors left all this stuff behind, or maybe they went on
the
night
jumpsuits.
raids.
Like, I buy that like the jumpsuits were left there for the clones.
Yeah.
And they haven't been using them until they were ready to do their takeover. But I don't buy that they were like, you know what? Every clone needs some gloves and every clone needs some gold scissors.
It was like only one glove on one hand, right?
Yeah. Well, that's because of Michael Jackson, the Thriller shirt.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
That's why they're wearing red, and that's why they have one glove on.
Right.
Oh.
But
well, that would
Yeah.
make sense. The glove. Huh.
yeah.
I didn't
Well,
even
there's
think
also
about that.
other
doesn't
interpretations to
explain
like
how
why
they-
they could be wearing red as well. But like,
There are.
but
sure.
but yeah, no, I agree with you. But the point is, like, just on a pure logistics writing level, none of that really makes sense. But like you, I don't think it detracts from the movie overall because of what the movie is actually saying and what the movie is actually about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think they develop exactly, specifically what's going on enough for it to completely not make sense.
I guess that's true.
You know what I mean? Like, there's so much unexplained about it that a lot could be going on that we don't really know about it. And maybe that's a cop-out, but that's how it worked for me.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm
And
there.
I think that's ultimately what the right answer is. But like I said, I can see a lot of people having a problem with it because I spoke to a couple.
Yeah.
That's where
makes
it
sense.
comes to the signs metaphor. You know, like you either buy that the aliens came to this planet, but are, you know, deathly allergic
Well, I
to water.
think Signs
or
makes
you
less
don't.
sense than this one.
I would agree, but I also haven't seen Signs in Forever. But
Yeah, and
that's a
but I
road
see what you're
we
saying.
don't got to go down.
Yeah,
Either
it's a thing
accept
you
it or you
buy
don't.
into or you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we kind of talked about the twist and or not. I wouldn't say twist, final revelation, I guess. Although there was a point where Lupita's walking, and behind her at the boardwalk, there's a sign that says like pretzel twist or something right behind her, and I was like, oh, he's letting me know that some weird shit's about to go down. And I think it was a lot longer before anything that I would call super twisty. But do we want to talk about that specifically since we've kind of mentioned it?
You talk about like the final revelation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The revelation that she's the one from underground, and they
switched
switched
places, yeah.
forever ago.
Right,
Whenever,
yeah.
what
Like
we
I
saw in
said-
the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. I said earlier, I saw that coming a mile away, like you said you did as well.
Yeah.
I have to be honest and say I realized it right before. Like,
Right.
the movie was in the process of telling us, and that's what, you know, but they hadn't quite come out and said it.
Right.
And I was like, oh, they switched places.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to.
I was not ahead of the game on that one.
I don't want to say I predicted everything because I certainly didn't. Like, I didn't realize there were more doppelgangers out there until the second family was murdered. But that said, the little girls being switched at the beginning was just so obvious as soon as we saw that there was another little girl in there that I wish we hadn't gotten all that information.
Yeah, what I think it is for me is there's a line spoken when they're at, I guess it's a therapist or a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist talking about wanting to get the girl to draw because she's not speaking about what happened.
Yeah, that made it even
let's
more
get her draw,
obvious.
let's get her
Yeah.
to paint. Well, there's a line spoken by the mom in that scene where she's like, I just want my daughter back.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, that's the line that when we see this flashback again later and they explain that it's actually not them, that's that line that we're going to hear the second time and go,
Right.
oh, it's not her daughter. She doesn't know that, but this is a line that's telling us
Right.
specifically that. And to me, that's the line where I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Man.
So, like, I already thought it, but that was the line that like, confirmed it, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I missed out on that. I did particularly like the way they shot those scenes, though, with the mom and dad, because it's from the little girl's perspective, and you don't really see their faces. It's like from the back, and then even when the dad walks up to the little girl, you know, it's just like his waist and his hand. It's kind of like the Peanuts adults. You know, you don't really see them. It's just you see. They're off from the distance or whatever. I just really enjoyed the way that was shot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like how the little things, like the way the beginning is filmed, whenever the young Adelaide is like wandering off by herself, and you see her noticing all these interactions between people and noticing mannerisms and how people behave, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the camera just lingers on everybody and passes by everybody, and you kind of get the idea that like these things are important, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, why are we like lingering on these people, like these teenagers flirting and all that, you know? And later in the
Couple
movie,
feeding each other.
what?
A couple feeding each other.
Yeah,
that we
exactly.
Don't have any relation to.
Exactly, right. But later those things make so much sense, and they were so organic, and they're not like distracting at the time, but you get the sense that like, I should pay attention to this.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about it is the shot is moving in such a way that it is interesting. It's not hard to pay attention to it. It's always interesting, and there's so many callbacks and so many breadcrumbs sprinkled throughout that are intended to pay off later.
Yeah. I'm constantly filing moments and little things away. unlike I do in almost any other film.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm just making this mental list, like a checklist, and I wish I had like a notepad.
Yeah,
kind of.
there's a certain
and to
joy.
like start writing things down on.
Yeah, there's a certain joy Jordan Peele has in just making a twisty plot.
So there's a clue in that segment that you guys are talking about, and it's the Jeremiah 11:11.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you guys had a chance to look that up?
I did look it up. I don't remember the exact quote, but I know that it is basically about God seeking revenge on people, so it's like a reckoning.
Yeah, I actually have it right here if you want.
Go for it.
It says,
Please.
"Therefore, this is what the Lord says, I will bring on them a disaster they cannot escape. Although they cry out to me, I will not listen to them." Yeah, so that's the verse, Jeremiah 11:11, and I think it actually works really well because 11:11, the doppelgangers being the same, and then just it's really, of course, later on in the film, the clock is 11:11 when they show up. So
Yeah. And the ambulance is 11:11 for some reason,
right,
as if that's part of the plan or something. I don't know. That kind of I didn't know if that was just a coincidence sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think we probably could look back into this movie and we find a lot of 11:11s. And I actually found that really interesting on the second viewing, too. So the Jeremiah 11:11 guy is dead, and then you see his doppelganger already standing.
Yeah, he's
waiting.
the first one in the line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
waiting to hold hands. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, like I had that in the back of my head. I was like, well, why is that guy standing there? What is he doing? What's the purpose? Because I know in my head he's a doppelganger because we've already seen him dead, like previously getting loaded into the ambulance. And so whenever we got to the beach and saw the line and saw him standing there, I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah, super cool. So we're kind of leading up to it, and there are a few thoughts I guess I've had on what this film could mean and who the tethered were and why this movie exists and like what's being said, you know?
Sure.
And I think it will take multiple viewings for me to really decide where I fall on like what I believe. And I also don't know that the tethered represent any one group. I also think this film's very intentionally vague. But I don't know, do you guys have any thoughts
On who the tethered are, or just what the film's trying to say?
Yeah, like what did you take away from this thing?
I think you're right about it being intentionally vague. So I think all three of us could have a different idea of what he's trying to say. Yeah, I think there's a couple of clues that kind of steer you in a certain direction, like when the doppelgangers say that we're Americans. So I think, and also the title's
it's
titled
called Us
or US, you know. So I think that there's definitely a direction that he's pointing us. And he may even have an idea of what it is, but I think we could all come away with something different and still be right about it, you know.
Agreed. Yeah. I guess I can go into my thoughts real quick.
Yeah, do it.
Sure.
First of all, I think this is a kind of bleak view on capitalism, or at least American culture for sure, if not an outright condemnation of it. Even before the movie goes off the rails, the two families are always competing for the better and cooler upper class lifestyle and focusing very much on material things. The kids are never paying attention to anything. The daughter's off in her own world. The family that they're competing with spend their days day drunk, you know?
And they name their OK Google thing Ophelia, which I just think is funny.
Yeah. So it's getting so wrapped up in that they either don't know or that they don't even pay attention to the fact that there are people below who are stuck in a much worse situation and have nothing. And I mean, the tethered in this case, but they could represent inner cities or ghettos anywhere.
Yeah.
But there is this inherent idea.
It's a lower class in general. In this film, they are literally lower.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's very on the nose. But there's this inherent idea that in order for us to live the way we do and focus on the things we focus on, that there are people that have to suffer in the dark somewhere and can't get out because the system is a big escalator going down constantly. You aren't meant to get out. You can climb out, but you're not meant to. The system is designed to show you how the upper society lives so that you want it, but to be lost in the dark and not know how to get there.
Sure. And it's important that the system was created, and they say that in the film, is that they figured out how to make two people, but not two souls.
Right.
So these people are very clearly engineered and put down there with intention. So, and it's been so long that, at least this is the impression that I got, that it's been so long that nobody really remembers, or there's a lot of people that don't know the whys anymore. And I think that goes to the opening quote of the film that's on text that's like, no one knows why these tunnels exist. But I think that, like you said, it's a comment on the system, and it's one of those things where like the system's been in place for so long that there are people that don't notice like the downside of it, I guess,
or just choose
we're
not
just
to.
also used to it.
It's easier because
we're also used to it.
It's inconvenient for us to come to terms with it. Even Adelaide, the Adelaide we follow throughout the movie, she should be the one who remembers and lives her life differently and better than us because she came from that place and she had to pull off some shady stuff to make a better life for herself. It required ruining someone else's life for her to live the way that we do. It also shows that if you live comfortably enough, you can ignore almost anything. And no change is really being worked on. So like America, we keep putting these problems off. And pretty soon, those who have a lot to lose or are more at risk of losing it, we're putting it off until it's too late. And it eventually reaches a boiling point like it did in this movie.
Yeah. I think the biggest comment on that I took away is what happens when people cross over from one side to the other, because we have two different situations in the switching of the Lupita Nyong'o's character. We have two different situations of people crossing over. We have someone coming from lower up into the real world where they have the sky and all of this nice life, and we have someone from the real world going down below and experiencing how terrible that is.
Right.
And we see the manifestations of that and like what happens to them as people, whereas to me, the Lupita that we follow the whole movie, she's assimilated, and rather than buck the system and try to call out that she's from down there, and she knows about this stuff, she likes this. This is my take, of course. She likes this life better and assimilates to have a better life and doesn't do anything about it, about what's going on below.
Right.
And with the one who goes below, she tries to do something about it, but it's manipulative of all the people down there. She gets them to, she doesn't care like who she destroys on the way up and on the way out of there. And I find that really, really interesting. Like I said, I saw it today, so I haven't had a ton of time to unpack that.
Right.
But it's one of the things that I keep thinking about.
Well, yeah, and there's also this sense of like, so let's say the tethered aren't even Americans. Let's say they are the poor souls who make our shoes, or who spend, their entire life living in a factory city so that we can have smartphones or new boats or whatever they want in this movie, So it could also be a metaphor of like, in order for us to even live the way we do now in this society, this upper class, society, somewhere in the world, there's someone else who lives a complete shit life, and we don't think about it because we want our smartphones, we want our TVs. We don't want to change. So there's also this sense of like that, but I don't know if that's necessarily where I land on it. I just think that could be argued. I think, I took it mainly as a metaphor of like, for other Americans, but as I'm thinking about it, I think it applies to ghettos anywhere, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's, oh, go ahead, Chris.
No, yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I think either one of those takes is good. I do think there's definitely an us versus them type of situation. Them infiltrating us like Adelaide does is an interesting thing because she's just like us, right? We have this fear, and in fact, I think at some point in the movie, the kids are almost joyously killing the doppelgangers. They're almost having like a good time, and they're really good at it.
There's an otherness about them.
Yeah, and this fear of the infiltration is something that I also read into it. Right.
Well, I know what you mean. Like how Adelaide, she's not like some different kind of human, right? Like she was able to live and adapt in the world and start a family and live a completely normal life, and no one knew.
Right, but she's still an other.
Right, but what that proves is these people can live in the real world. They don't have to be an other. We don't have to be scared of them, but we are because they are other. So we shut them away and forget about them and treat them as less than, but they're not. We know that they're smart, they're capable of rational thought, and she wanted a better life, and she stole it.
Yeah.
So there's also a sense of that, right? Which is that like we may view them as other. We may view immigrants as other, or, I don't think it's too on the nose to say that they're wearing red and there's some harsh political times going on right now, you know, and there's a certain party that associates with red. Like, all these things are, I think the movie's basically saying is like, there's a temptation to otherize someone.
Yeah.
But you probably shouldn't.
And they're just like us.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth noting that thematically, that makes a lot of sense to me. The one thing that I would ask you about, I guess, is nobody knows about these people except for the two Adelaides.
Well, the government did, right? And then eventually they just kind of forgot about them. So the government doesn't necessarily represent, like, I mean, I guess in this case, the government's a stand-in for us, right?
Or, I mean, even then, if you don't watch the news, or if you're ignorant as to, and maybe ignorant's the wrong word, but to what's going on in the world, you don't have to know about, you know, the people making our phones or along those lines to not know about it, you know. So there is relevance.
Right. And it also could be representative of all the many problems our government creates and then never
they come back
cleans
to bite
up.
Us, yeah.
Right.
Right. I also think there may be a little something, and this goes with the political side, is that once you go from the good life to the bad life, and as far as politically, I'm speaking of being, you know, in power to out of power. And to like a specific example would maybe be once you go as, we'll say a Republican who supports Trump, and Trump comes into the White House, and all of a sudden Trump is getting the negativity that Obama got for 8 years, then the reaction is to, I want to say, like, burn everything down, destroy everything, in a sense of attacking media that's criticizing Trump, right? And to me, like, the Adelaide that goes down into the tethered land, she basically manipulates, talks everybody into this great plan to go up and kill everybody else, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I didn't really want to go that direction, but there's a lot there. You know, like, are you suggesting that?
I'm not suggesting that it's about Republicans specifically.
Right.
I mean, you could put the shoe on the other foot, is that we made fun of George Bush forever, and then Obama went into office, and then Obama was getting a ton of negativity from the other side. And once you're like in that fight,
I mean,
you want to just be like, get rid of everybody. You can react very strongly, I guess, and overreact, which I would say Adelaide's plan of bringing everybody up and destroying all of the other doppelgangers.
Okay. I think that theory is on the right track, but I think if we're going to go with that theory, it would be more about the 2016 election specifically.
Yeah.
And that all your brothers and sisters people that voted for Trump, and you're like, whoa, why would you do that? You know, like, so there's all these people that are like, after Obama, they want to burn it down. But there's still just like us, you know, I don't know.
I think Chris is more on the right track. That, like, if we're going to go that route, these people would be the current people burning things down, and they're way more organized, and they are way more passionate, and they have one unified source of information that's full of shit. I think that's more of the stronger parallel.
Yeah, Trump is burning everything down.
But I also don't know that Jordan Peele wants to do that, because I think the movie, what he's trying to make is a movie to not otherize someone else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why I don't think it's that specific.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that if you were on the other side of the political spectrum, then I guess we are, you would maybe see the same thing, because the same things that we think about their side, they think about us, right?
Sure.
So I think that's what I mean, essentially, when I say it's not about Republicans specifically, but I could be wrong. I think that's one of the things that's great about the film, is that there are so many things that it's about and that it can be about.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to visit this one again.
It reminds me of a more accessible Sorry to Bother You.
Yeah, yeah.
Totally.
And it also, I mean, like, I think with Get Out, what he was trying to say was very obvious and right there in front of you the whole time. You didn't have to parse it out. I think in this, there are obvious things I think that he's trying to say, but we can all kind of take away our own thing. It doesn't necessarily, it's not this one thing. It can be several things at the same time.
Yeah, and I think as long as you take away that you need to do better yourself and turn the lens back on yourself, I think you can't go wrong with no matter how you take it, right? As long as you take the right messages, which is that it's about us, not them.
Right.
That's what's important.
Mm-hmm. The one other theory that I read very quickly in a headline, I didn't actually have time to read the article. Plus, I saw the article before I saw the movie, so I didn't want to read it. But the headline suggested that the film is about Kanye West in his recent turn, which I think is really funny. And it works if you really start to think about it. But just want to throw that out there for anyone who wants to think about that for a while.
Where was this article?
I don't even remember. I don't know if it was a Yahoo, like when I went to check my mail, it was one of my email, not my regular mail. There was like one of the articles, or maybe I saw it scrolling Twitter. Someone had tweeted out the article.
I think someone printed it out and mailed it to you
in the mail. Or Yahoo just stands by, some guy named Yahoo stands by your mailbox shouting out headlines.
He's just some Yahoo. His name's not actually Yahoo.
Oh, okay. That's a better one. So there's this really cool scene, but I'm not exactly sure what it means. It's the ballet scene with I've Got 5 on it in the background, which I thought that was done really well. But they're flashing back and forth. It's after they've already switched places and they're dancing. What exactly do you suppose that means? Like, I know she gets hurt at that time, I believe. Yeah. And then all the doppelgangers, when she gets hurt or after the dance, rush to her. Like, what exactly do you think that means, guys?
This is whenever Red, aka the real Adelaide, is dancing, right?
Well, they're both dancing and it's flashing back and
the
forth.
The doppelgangers down below are watching the real Adelaide, who we later know as Red, correct? Is that
correct? Yes.
Okay.
And then we're flashing back and forth to Adelaide, above Adelaide, that switched places in the actual dress and stuff like that.
Right. I think that was probably significant in the moment whenever she started her plans. Like, I think that's whenever the doppelgangers took notice of her, and like she was able to kind of break the weird tether connection that they have. Like, they're still connected with these people. But I think that was the first time that those people focused on what was in front of them rather than what was above.
Right. Why do we suppose that is, though?
She's showing them art, right? She's showing them beauty or dance or whatever you want to call it. She's showing them something that inspires them.
Okay.
Yeah, because everybody else, the way that they're moving, it's like they're doing similar things to what we're seeing the people do. Like when we're flashing back between what they're imitating, but it's kind of stiff and not the exact movements. Yeah. And I think to see that, like you said, Mike, it's beautiful. It's different, and that's why they think that they treat her like a god. I think they say, right,
like Jesus or something.
Yeah.
That's when she saw God, I think is what she says.
Oh, okay.
Red, but
well, I assume that's like kind of the point where she becomes the special one, and everybody kind of follows her, and that's how she is able to enact all this plan and get everybody to dress up in red jumpsuits and put on one glove and kill people.
Yeah, and for a long time, I was wondering, like, what was up with Red's voice? You know?
Yeah. Let's talk about that. What do you guys think, or what do you think, Mike?
Adelaide
she got choked,
strangled her. Yeah. Strangled her and chained her to a bed.
Yeah, my initial thinking was, she learned how to speak, and this is the best she can do because nobody else talks, right?
That's what we're supposed to think, right? But no, her throat's all messed up.
Yeah, she got choked out, and so that's the best she can do now after her windpipe was damaged. But I thought
that's very literal. I think.
Yeah. Do you have a different interpretation?
Yeah, do you have a metaphorical?
Well, I guess it's also maybe literal too. But I guess literal in the sense that it's something we saw happen. I kind of filled that out in the fact that she couldn't speak for so long because no one else was. And if she was speaking, she would have given herself away as not a real doppelganger one. And I'm curious personally what would have happened. Like, I don't know if they would have killed her.
I mean, they didn't kill her whenever she was dancing beautifully. They started following her at that point.
Yeah, but she wasn't necessarily... I mean, I guess she probably had to talk in some way to get them together. I figured she had to spend so long assimilating and pretending to be one of them that, like, her voice got messed up from, like, having to groan. Because everybody else kind of screeches, and maybe that has some bad effect on your voice over time.
Maybe. Well, I think it's more symbolic than that, though. I think it's more, as far as like what they're capable of. Like it's not like they're incapable of speech. Like Adelaide learns how to speak once she moves up there and she realizes she needs to, right?
Yeah.
So they're capable of it.
But she doesn't talk for so long.
But I think it's that they don't have the society or the infrastructure down there to better themselves yet. Like they don't understand it yet. Like they're not being taught. So they're not stupid, but they're ignorant kind of, and they're focused on what's above. And so metaphorically, I guess, it could be the people trapped in these poor neighborhoods everywhere, they're on the outside looking into like what everyone else has, and they don't know how to get out of their situation. It can be done, but it requires some inspiration and some hard work and possibly doing some stuff you don't want to do to make it happen.
I actually, so it's interesting. So maybe when they're dancing and they see something beautiful, maybe that's the tethered being cut, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Like
it inspires them to stop focusing on what's above and have them start to form plans and ideas.
Right, which is almost unfortunate in the way that the movie ends, because instead of, they're kind of like the two families always trying to compete with each other. Like the other family has better stuff than we do. So instead of making a life where they are, they focus on who they think has better things, right? And so they come and
I don't think
murder.
the movie is optimistic. I think the message of the movie is things are going to reach a boiling point, and pretty soon it's going to be too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, it's obviously a very extreme example, but the plan is come up and kill every person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. But that's how revolutions happen. You know what I mean? I'm not saying there's going to be a revolution happening, but like that's how change happens. It's usually through violence. That's the only way that things happen in a short time. Otherwise, the world changes very slowly and incrementally. And I think what this movie is suggesting is that pretty soon, like there will be a retribution eventually if we continue to not treat people the way they need to be treated.
Yes, I agree. So let me ask you guys this, and we'll be moving. This will move us out of talking about what the film is about, because I want to go back a little bit literal about the film. So do we want to talk about anything else about what the film is about?
No, I think I've talked plenty.
Yeah, we could go forever on this, but let's move on.
Yeah, so I just want to check something, because when that final revelation happens where we realize that Adelaide was actually the one from below and they switched as kids.
Yeah, Adelaide is red and red is Adelaide.
Yeah. So initially, and I think that maybe this is intentional, but my conditioning to that sort of twist, my initial like knee-jerk reaction was that like, oh, she was, sort of the evil one all along. And there was almost this sense immediately, I was like, oh, impending doom for the family because they're with the one. But I think that that's not right, because pretty immediately I was like, wait a minute. I think this is more about, she's more human now, and she's assimilated and is actually protecting her family. She's not in on this plan, right?
Yeah, I took it as basically a point or a case in point example of they're not so other. I mean, give them the same opportunities and they can achieve the same things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think on that note, it has more to do with the son's reaction, because I feel like he knows, or at least thinks he knows.
Did you guys
right?
ever consider the fact that maybe the son had been switched out the year before?
Why the year before?
Because they said they'd been there or previously, and because he got locked in the closet the year before.
Oh, well, at the beach house?
Yeah.
He hasn't been they said something, he hasn't been the same since his grandma, they were there.
Yeah, and he's always been acting weird, and he's making tunnels in the sea instead of sandcastles and stuff.
That would make sense. That's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the one thing I think we talked about earlier, is that the revelation made me recontextualize a lot of stuff in the film. And it's one of those things we've talked about with other films where the twist happens and maybe we do see it coming from a mile away, but the way that it recontextualizes everything is worth,
totally.
having a predictable twist, I think.
Totally.
And this is a great example of that.
100% agree with that.
Yeah. And you may call it predictable, but I was surprised.
Sure. Well, I mean, also I was going in looking for a twist,
Yeah.
Sure.
I have a question. It's about the film, and maybe a little bit more about like what it's about. But at the very beginning, Adelaide is sitting on the couch, and there's a spider, like a real spider, like crawling across the table. And then later on in the film, Red is got Adelaide on the couch or whatever, and she's got her hands like up around her face and does this little like taps her fingers across her face, right? And it sounds like a spider skittering. What do you guys? I mean, where does the spider fit in? Like, or does it, or is it just a creepy image? Like, what does a spider do? Does it lay its eggs? I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, I'm trying to think of a metaphor for that, but I can't. I don't know if I can get one.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I took the initial spider. I don't know about the hand thing later, but I took the initial spider as her uneasiness. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of her being very uneasy. And real quick, do you guys believe that she was aware and remembered where she came from, or do you believe she had forgotten it over the years and just had an uneasy feeling about the beach in general?
I think she was aware.
I do too.
She was assimilating, essentially.
So she was very much trying not to go back there because she knew that she might be found out and comeuppance might happen. Okay.
Yeah, that's where I stand.
Good.
I think
That's
while
where I
I was
stand
watching the film, I thought that she didn't remember it. Like the first, as you're going around, but like as you walk out of the theater, you're like, she knew the whole time what was going on.
Okay, yeah.
Which is exactly what it recontextualized for me. Like looking back on everything she's doing throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And like, oh, okay, I get it.
Agreed.
But to go back to the spider thing, the one thing I do want to point out, and maybe I'm mistaken, Chris, you've seen it twice, but isn't there a stuffed spider next to the big spider, or the real spider that's crawling?
Comes out from
like
under it, right?
behind it, yeah. It's not a stuffed spider or like a Lego spider or something.
So maybe that's him telling us that the real spider crawling from underneath, like the fake spider, is letting us know that, the real Adelaide Lupita is actually
not here,
underground, the lower one.
Yeah,
and maybe he's telling us from there. You know,
the finger thing sounds like a spider, or like the little. I may be reading too much into that.
I think that's just effect, to be honest, because I never connected that at all, and I didn't personally think spider either.
Yeah, that's fine. I was like, oh, that sounds like a spider, like a skittering spider.
Yeah, I didn't get that in the later scene, but I did notice the initial spider coming from the fake spider. One of the things I liked about what the, I guess, doppelganger tethered people were doing was like they would do like half a mannerism or like half a thing. Like they would laugh or scream, but with no sound. Or like Tim Heidecker's character would like walk around like an asshole, like an arrogant asshole, but never say anything. But constantly look like he was better than you on his face. I like how they would get like the basic mannerisms down, but they weren't ever able to quite like figure out the whole thing. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I was laughing pretty hard at him, Tim Heidecker's character, walking around as like his tethered person. It was really funny.
Yeah,
I think he did a really good job. Surprisingly, like I was surprised. I just talked about On Cinema at the Cinema last week, which he's also in. But he's very character-ish in On Cinema at the Cinema, which this is probably a character too. But like I really enjoyed him in this, surprisingly.
I enjoyed Elizabeth Moss's scene.
Yes, and I want to get to that too, for sure.
But like, man, that thing where she's like looking out the window and going crazy, like not making any noises.
Like she's screaming, and then that scream turns into a laugh, and it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's just like no noise coming from her at all.
Yeah. Another interesting thing, too, about Elizabeth Moss's character that I didn't notice till the second time around, but it was, so she had talked about having plastic surgery.
Right.
And the doppelganger, of course, has scars from this plastic surgery. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Is that why she cuts her face, you think? Because that's one thing I had trouble placing.
I think so. I think she cuts along the scar. I mean, I could be wrong, but it seemed along that line.
I also think something along those lines. The reason that the doppelganger kid was burned is because the stupid magic trick he's always trying to do that like replicates like a lighter or lighting a match kind of. Mm-hmm. So the doppelganger kid who had the matches lit himself on fire.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah.
Probably because of that.
Yeah. Do you think it was the match and the snapping thing that clued the son into the fact that he could get out of the car and manipulate the doppelganger?
Probably.
And make him walk backwards into the fire?
Yeah, it almost felt like they had a psychic connection as he turns around the car.
Yeah, kind of like Adelaide and Red did, which is why I kind of thought that maybe that kid, the burned one, is actually Lupita Nyong'o's Adelaide, the one we follow, her legitimate child. And that maybe the doppelganger burned him somehow to trap him down there. I don't know.
Yeah. I thought the little girl, the sister, she wasn't that little, I guess. But I thought she was really good. Like, her
doppelganger was scary.
Doppelganger. Yeah. I know. It was the creepiest one.
Yeah,
to me.
That smile that she had.
Yeah, and running around in the darkness, and you could never quite get a focus on her because she's just like running in the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one of the humor scenes that really worked for me was when they're having the scene around the car. And she gets on top of the car, and that guy just comes out of his house. He's like, "Hey, why don't you get off my car? What are you doing?" That made me laugh. It was a really good point to like make me laugh because it was so suspenseful for so long.
Yeah, and I love the scene whenever she's about to chase her down, and she just waits for her to get completely out of sight before taking off.
Yeah,
and I was like, "Oh,
it's cocky.
What a scary thing to do."
Yeah,
right.
So
very effective.
Another thing, as like if there's a deeper meaning or not, or if it's just the regular meaning, and maybe because of the favorite, the symbol always has a deeper meaning now. But like the bunnies, is there anything in particular about the bunnies that you guys think? I'm on the side right now that it's just it was just meat and it's an interesting image. But do you guys read anything else into that?
I mean, I think bunnies are just kind of like lab rats, like go-to animals for science experiments, and it kind of explains what these people could be eating because rabbits breed like crazy. And I'm sure the bunnies were the clone tests before the people were, So I don't know that there's any more to it than that. There may be some like symbolic bunny stuff. Like I know the girl's shirt, like Tho, is Vietnamese for bunny, I think, or something for bunny. Let me look that up. Yeah. So Tho is just rabbit.
Okay.
Yeah. So her shirt basically just means rabbit in Vietnamese.
And there's this is probably the last thing. Everybody's wearing a black flag shirt. Or there's several people that do wear one. There's like the guy at the initial whack-a-mole thing is wearing a black flag shirt. And then there's several other people throughout that are wearing black flag shirts. Not only is it a ban, it's also, like a pesticide to get rid of pesticide, like a vermins.
But they're wearing the ban shirts.
Right. But is it in reference to the like getting rid of the logo. Varmints?
Look at Black Flag's logo. It's 11.
It's 11/11.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Boom.
Makes sense. Now I got it.
All part of the plan or coincidental.
Dun, dun, dun.
It's probably coincidence, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So anyways, that's all I've really got. I think I've exhausted everything I have to say about this movie for now, at least with one viewing.
Yeah, I think I would have a lot more on a second viewing, but who has time for that?
Yeah, I might even retract a few things I said upon a second viewing, but too late now. It's in the bank.
Definitely. Yeah. Cool. So does that do it for this episode?
It does?
Yeah, I think so. It's a hefty one.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you for seeing us. Because as I said before, we need to support this kind of movie, this original horror.
Agreed. And you know what? If you guys have different interpretations of us, if you think we're wrong, or if you have anything cooler to add, write us in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then, of course, can't forget to thank Jake Wagner-Russell for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
All right. Stay tuned to this channel. Our next episode will be a casualty criterion over safety last. And then next week, we might be doing Dumbo.
Yep, maybe.
Justin doesn't want to.
No, I thought about trying to sound excited for a second, and then I was like, well, let's just be real here.
Let's call it what it is.
Let's not put the veil over anybody. Let's find something better. Is there something better we should cover? Let us know.
For sure.
I wanted to say better. I guess more exciting.
Yeah, because we don't know if it's better yet.
Specific to Justin's taste, though.
Yeah. If you guys could just, figure out what Justin wants to see and let us know.
Yeah. I like soccer, Great British Bake Off. I like comedies.
He's a simple man.
And the Jackass films.
Oh, boy.
Oh, God.
Please, not that.
Oh, we would all watch a Jackass 4. Don't pretend like we wouldn't.
We would, but I just don't want those, 4 things to be, what their recommendations are to go off of. That'd be like if I were queuing in recommendations on bands that I like on Spotify or something like that. I wouldn't start with my guilty pleasures,
You wouldn't start with The Darkness? I don't know.
The Black Flag. I believe in a thing called love?
Yeah. I mean, maybe. Start with it. I was trying to think of a band that had one good song that's kind of cheesy and lame.
Yeah. I probably would have gone with Fountains of Wayne, like Stacy's mom. Although I don't really like that song, so I guess that wouldn't count.
I don't either.
Not even a guilty pleasure. It's just pisses me off.
What would you start building a Spotify queue based on your suggestions with?
We're ending the show.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Let us know on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast.
Thanks so much for listening, guys, and we will see us later.
Good one.
Yeah, thought of that. It took me a long time.
Nice. I was waiting for you to make an us joke the whole episode. I kind of thought if Mike hadn't said Jordan Peele's new film Us at the beginning, I was thinking Chris was going to be like, yep, we're going to talk about ourselves today.
Actually, it was
Chris
there.
Impression.
And then he said Jordan Peele, and I was like, damn it, Mike.
I knew it.